Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me again. So today's talk is going to be a little bit of a deep dive into what we spoke about yesterday. You know, this Andrew Bridgen interview. I mean, some of the stuff he was talking about, guys, he's really well connected. You can tell that by listening to him. So before I go on, guys, I've actually made notes on this one, so it might be a little bit of a longer video and a little bit more structured. So let me know what you think about the format and if you're happy with it. Also, guys, I know there's problems with the sound. I've got a lapel mic on the way. Hopefully that will be here soon, but if not, you'll just have to deal with it. Anyway, so if you've not seen that video if you've not seen the video I did yesterday, guys, go and check that out real quick. It's only a short video, but I've got the links in there to the interview that I'm talking about. Now, in a nutshell, it's an interview with UK MP Andrew Bridgen, and he's talking about, you know, we're already at war with Russia. The Russians know it. We know it. It's going to be announced round about, hang on, I've got notes here, guys, July, August time, and maybe a little bit later. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to say what I've been saying for quite a while. I said in February we're going to see the initial start of this. I said whatever happens, we're going to see it in February, and this kind of all ties in now, and all the dots are starting to be connected. So what I said in February you'll see whatever it is, you'll see what happens, and what we saw in February is a divergence between the US and the United Kingdom. Basically, it's looking like now the UK is going to lead NATO in Eastern Europe against the Russians, and it's looking like if and when Donald Trump gets elected that he's going to potentially pull funding, not want to get involved with this conflict with the Russians. And that's just the way things are going to happen. So from the interview then yesterday, from the video I posted yesterday, one of the things that that was said on that interview is that the guy spoke with the Russian ambassador to the UK, who's now been expelled. And, and the Russian ambassador said that, he said that the Russians know that the British are using these more sophisticated weapons, and it's those guys who are actually using them. Now, remember, it doesn't really matter what's happening on the ground. All that matters is the perception of what's happening. So if the Russians believe that the Brits are using these weapons against them, then they are. It doesn't matter if they are or they're not. That's all that matters, that what the Russians believe. And again, you've got to look at both sides of this story. For the Russians, they've got, this is what they believe, and this is what, this guy Andrew Bridgen's saying. From the Russian side of it, you've got British soldiers now on the ground firing British weapons against them. As far as the Russians are concerned, they are already at war with NATO. There's no getting around it for the Russians. It's just not being made official yet. And also, he's saying that Rishi Sunak's spoken to the generals or the MOD staff, and he said, I don't want to be a wartime leader. So where does that go? What does that mean? How are we moving forwards? Now, if we look at the timeline that they gave for this, that, this is going to be declared in, what did he say? July, August, or maybe later. That means that Rishi can't be in power then. That means Rishi needs to be out of power for when this happens. So that's just one to keep in mind. He also talks about, he says, well, who's in charge then? And he says, well, somebody above Rishi is in control. So, they're talking about the whole thing of Parliament being a pantomime and, and it not being relevant because, he's saying that he's talking about, he talks about a lot about it all being about money and people making money. Now, one of the things he said, and it's absolutely true, look at Nancy Pelosi in the United States. He said, all you need to do to make a lot of money is to know what's going to be in the papers this week. And if you're controlling that narrative, then you can make a lot of money. And that's what he's saying is happening at the moment. He's saying people are making a lot of money over these things because they know what's coming in the future. Now, when they talk about, when they talk about, and then Andrew Bridgen, he says that this war's going to be announced officially July, August, maybe a little bit later. When he said that, it kind of resonated for me because the summer holidays and the summer break, everybody goes on, you know, summer vacation in August. So for me, it would make sense to make it official around about that time when everybody's away. Nobody, you know, there's less people in office. There's less people, you know, to object. There's less people, you know, because people have gone on holiday, people are away, and people need to get back. You know, if less people are there to object, if less people are there to scrutinize, these things can, you know, can get pushed forwards a lot quicker. So that's the you know, that's the timeline that he's giving you guys. I've not given you that. That's what he's giving you, and I, you know, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, yeah, that's kind of right. So he also goes on and he talks about these, you know, the weapons that are given to the Ukrainians. And one of the things he mentioned is the F-16s, and he said that from his conversation with the Russian ambassador, that there are only 2 runways in Ukraine that could host these F-16s, and he says, well, as soon as you get them, we're just going to bomb the runways, which is like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you know, you guys are at war. Then you're going to have the problem of what do the Ukrainians do with the F-16s then? Do they fly them from Europe? If so, is that not, you know, is that not NATO direct involvement? Where does that go? Because then the Russians said, right, if you're going to fly these F-16s from inside Europe mainland, you know, Poland somewhere, then we're just going to bomb those runways as well. And guys, that is a huge escalation. Can you imagine Russians bombing an airfield in Poland? Because don't forget, from the Russian side of it, there's nothing more that NATO can throw at them, really, apart from putting troops on the ground. And there's nothing, you know, and all the time, you know, as time goes on and the Russians are fighting and fighting and fighting, they're getting more experience, they're understanding how the kit and equipment works. You know, and then when NATO come in, they're first of all, NATO are not going to be going initially into combat roles. They're going to be pushing forwards up to the Dnipro, up to the Northern Corridor with Belarus. So initially, NATO won't be involved in direct contacts. But anyway, so that's kind of what's on the ground at the moment. Now, also what you've got to think about is the other weapon systems. And one thing also with the F-16s, guys, all right? Like I said in yesterday's video, you can't just give somebody one of these sophisticated pieces of equipment. With the F-16s, you need a lot of man hours for when they're on the ground to service them, to repair them, you know, to install and update software. So it's not just like you go, here's an aeroplane, go use it. No, you've got to have the whole servicing bay. You've got to have, you know, there's a load of additional infrastructure that you have to have with that. And guys, honestly, I don't even think they'll be flown from Ukraine. I think these will be doing sorties outside of Ukraine, probably from Poland. That goes the same with all these sophisticated pieces of weaponry that they're giving the Ukrainians. They need servicing, they need spare parts, they need all the other little bits, you know, the nuts, the bolts, the ball bearings, the computer chips, the software, the connectors, all that sort of stuff that people don't think about. But they are integral to these weapon systems, and without one of these small pieces, the whole system doesn't work. So you need that constant servicing, you need that constant repair. So, you know, all these things, you know, they're going to need to be done in Europe. Now, take this, what I've just said now, put into the context what David Cameron said when he said Ukraine can use weapons to attack Russia. Ukraine can use British weapons to attack Russia mainland. Now, let's think about what we've just said and use that as the context. If Russia already knows or believes, it doesn't matter what's really happening, if Russia believes that the Brits are firing these weapons and using these weapons anyway, what that statement, what David Cameron means is Brits can use British weapons to attack Russian mainland. That's what that means, guys. That's the subtext of this. So you can kind of understand why the Russians are a little bit annoyed. But, you know, guys, what we're in at the moment, we're in, and there's no getting out of it now. There is absolutely no getting out of it. There's no going back. What started, you know, we just need to accept it. So that's why the Russians have started their tactical nuclear drills on the border. I think they started that yesterday. So what does that mean? So they'll basically be now, what they'll be doing is they'll be drilling. So the Iskander missile system, go check these out, guys. So the Iskander missile can be fitted with a tactical nuclear weapon. Now, they've already been firing Iskanders Iskander. They've already been firing them into Ukraine, so they know that they work. They know that they can hit Ukraine targets inside Ukraine with these weapon systems. You know, they've been doing this with good accuracy. what they're practicing and drilling at the moment is using this for, you know, putting the nuclear weapon, putting the low yield tactical nuclear weapons in there, and then, you know, and then being able to fire them on short notice. So that's what's happening right now on the border, guys. And you're starting to see all these pieces move together. And you know, you know, it's been laid out for us what's happening, and literally, you know, he's saying it there, or July, August, maybe a little bit later. That's not my words. That's, you know, a British MP's words. So yeah, so they're using drilling with their tactical nuclear weapons. That's happening right now as we speak. And guys, it's not hard. You know, go to the store, put the bomb in the put the warhead in the missile, send the missile off. Simple. Once they're drilled with that, they know where to do it. They've moved all the assets in place. They've identified any problems. They've fixed the problems, and they're ready to go. So they're going to be ready to go pretty soon. Now, if you've been following this channel and our other channel for quite a while, you'll understand what I always say it's about the money. And, you know, Donald Trump only understands this. So they're talking in the mainstream media now about the Europe giving a 50 billion loan to the Ukrainians and this money will come from seized Russian assets. Guys, take yourself as the Russian point of it, guys, and I'm no friend of the Russians. You know, I think Russia should get out of Ukraine as quickly as possible because, you know, Russia is the aggressor. Consider if you're a Russian oligarch and the only reason you're putting pressure on Putin not to go full force is because you've got 5 billion in assets in Europe. You've got a yacht, you've got a couple of mansions, you know, you've got assets in Europe that have been frozen. As soon as they get that money taken away from them, these oligarchs are going to be like, right, Vladimir, just go for it. Just go for it. I want my assets back. And that's the reality of, you know, of the situation with this money. Now, it's really interesting. They're not going to give the money to the Ukrainians. They're going to loan it to the Ukrainians, which is kind of tying the Ukrainians down and tying themselves down, because if this was a gift, you know, a grant or whatever, then the Ukrainians use it, it's done. Because it's a loan, they have to keep funding more, because then they can say and go back to their whatever structure they've got, and they can say, hey guys, you know, we've loaned $50 billion to Ukraine. If we don't continue to protect it, we're going to lose our 50 billion loan. So that's kind of why they're doing it as a loan. So that's the situation as we are, guys, today. It's absolutely terrifying. And, you know, things are already in motion now that can't be unmotioned, I guess. What I do want to note quickly is something that came out in the media last night about an ex-Royal Marine who was spying for Hong Kong, was found dead in a park. Go check it out yourself, guys. What I will say, though, is I don't really see the utility in spying for Hong Kong. I think this was just code for spying for China. And remember, a lot of these people who get done for spying, first of all, don't spy. Don't be a spy for your country that's giving you a lot. What I will say, though, is a lot of people who are done on these spying charges, on these espionage charges, on these sabotage charges, they don't actually know who they're working for. You know, they'll just be told, hey, can you get me X, Y, and Z, and I'll give you this. They'll say, yeah, okay. Remember what I said about the sabotage that I believe is coming to the UK? It's probably not, the people doing the acts of sabotage are probably not going to know it's sabotage. For example, I'm going slightly off topic, guys. If you find a criminal or somebody willing to do criminal acts, and you just say to them, hey, you know what? I'm just making this up. My brother, my sister worked for this company. She had a really bad accident and they didn't pay her out. Here's 500 quid. Here's $1,000. Can you go and smash that pipe up? They don't know they're doing an act of, you know, international sabotage. And the person who's paying them probably doesn't even know. But if you continue up these chains, you know, these payment chains, and follow the money, and it's very difficult to follow the money, especially when you start moving cash. When you follow these payment chains, it's interesting who you come to. One of the other things that's come out as well that I think is really interesting, and I'll tell you why it ties in, is China have started to build drone aircraft carriers. Now, guys, I've been saying this for so long. The amount of money we're spending on aircraft carriers, it's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. It's stupid. Aircraft carriers are gone. we need to be building drone aircraft carriers. So instead of having your latest, most fancy, expensive, brilliant ships, aircraft on your most expensive ships that don't work, by the way, what we should be doing is we should be outrigging trawlers, old ships, anything with a long flat back on it, you know, making an airfield, making a landing site on there, and then you can build the drones actually inside the aircraft carrier, and then you can use them for deployment. Doesn't matter if they come back or not, you've not lost any pilots, and it's a lot cheaper. Now, we're going to see asymmetric naval warfare at some point. And our conventional navies, our conventional, you know, sea fleets, they're not going to be able to cope because then they've never had to deal with an unseen threat. Your naval threats at the moment, you can see your enemy's ships and you just fight with them. That's kind of conventional. What we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan is people wearing civilian on an infantry side of it. What we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan is people in civilian clothes, people not wearing military fatigue. You don't know who they are, and then they're the ones who attack you. They throw the rifle away, and then they're civilians again. We're going to see attacks coming from civilian shipping vessels, and that's going to be the future of naval warfare. And guys, this all ties into Antarctica. Let's go right back to the beginning now, guys. Okay, the first thing I said. The Russian ambassador knows that Brits are using weapons in Ukraine. So the Brits are fair game. So now, if the Russians know this, a preemptive strike on the Falkland Islands to seize the oil in Antarctica seems perfectly fair game now for the Russians, guys. All right, that's the unseen conflict area that I don't think anyone's even considering at the moment. And don't forget, you know, the Argentinians have just bought a load of, you know, fighter jets. There's no reason for them to buy fighter jets. They're not in. Look at the countries that surround Argentina. They don't need those fighter jets unless they're planning on, you know, an air campaign on the Falklands, which I believe they are. And because of the money that's down there, guys. All right. That is it. I've been going for almost 20 minutes, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you prefer these longer, do you prefer these longer set videos where I actually make notes? Or do you want me to just come here and give a good old-fashioned rant for 5 to 10 minutes? Anyway, guys, I'm going to try and get you another update later on. I really need to look at a few of these things on here and get back to you. But I'll speak to you guys later.